It's Wednesday the 4th of December in the Vendée Globe, the skipper's 24th day at sea, and the deep depression in the Indian Ocean, which we've been talking about for a number of days, is now upon the leaders. Charlie Dalin and Sébastien haven't decided to go north. They are taking the south option, which, while theoretically could put them into the strongest winds, if they can outrun it, they can actually end up on the front end of this system, whereas those in the north will be taking the swing at the top of this low pressure system and then will have to duck back south. The reason that this south option is appealing for those leaders is because of the distance. If you are looking, it is the shortest distance to travel, and so if they can combine speed and the shortest distance to travel, they will make a huge gain out of this. We also take a look at the AEZ, the Antarctic Exclusion Zone, which a number of people in the comments have asked me about, and so we explain a little bit about that and what the penalties are for if you cross into it. The tracker at 0600 UTC clearly shows the routes that Charlie Dalin and Sébastien are taking that southern route, whereas the rest of the fleet, led by Ewan Richomme, are taking that northern route. This is going to be interesting as this low pressure system, you can see that is currently over the top of them, deepens. In 6 hours' time, you can see the winds are much stronger. Those reds are now showing the winds at the strongest will be 30 to 35 knots. Move forward 12 hours in the forecast and they are deep reds, that is 35, maybe 40 knots. Go forward 24 hours, we can start to see the purples. That is 45 knots. And at 36 hours, we can see those dark purples, that is 50 plus knots, and we may be seeing seas in excess of 8 meters. The southern boats you can see are near the center of that low pressure system, which has moved to the south. The center of it is actually in the Antarctic Exclusion Zone, but the northern route, they should be out of the worst of it. You can see that the route they are taking, as the low pressure system moves south, they will be getting the less breeze than those two leaders who may well be right in it. The latest ranking shows that pair of leaders in exactly the same places and no moving in the ranking, but the 24-hour speeds are very interesting indeed. Take a look there. Charlie Dalin doing 9.3 knots, whereas Thomas Rouillon in 4th place doing 16.4 knots, and Jeremy Bayou just behind him, 17.7 knots. And Sam Goodchild here, 19.5 knots. So the pair in the front, taking that southern option, have slowed down, and we've seen that compression start to take place that we talked about yesterday. And we are seeing these northern sailors who are beginning to make gains. As to how this plays out when the depression comes over the top of them more, we will see. Richard Gladwell, sailworld.com's New Zealand editor, has again done the routing with Predict Wind for Charlie Dalin. And here you can see him right on the front edge of those biggest winds, which are the black and the dark red colours you see as the low pressure system moves south. We've extended the routing now beyond the longitude of Cape Lewin, the southwest tip of Australia. And you can see how those dark areas, the dark red areas, are above that routing line as well. So the northern option should pay quite well as well. And there are various routes that they can then take with the current weather forecast as you go towards the longitude of Tasmania. One of the questions that I've been asked a lot in the comments is about the Antarctic Exclusion Zone and if there are any penalties if you cross that grey line that we see on the tracker just south of where they are currently travelling in the Indian Ocean. And for that we need to refer to the sailing instructions of the Vendée Globe. And if we scroll down on this, we can see down here Annex 4, prohibited zones, and also Annex 6, the penalty guide of the Vendée Globe 24-25. Now let's scroll down to those And here we can see Annex 4, the prohibited zones. And as we scroll down those, there are various areas for various reasons. And here we are, the Antarctic Exclusion Zone. Now this has actually been amended. One of the sections is now slightly further south than it was previously. And these are highlighted in red and is one of the amendments of the sailing instructions. And they just set the coordinates as to where the exclusion zones are. They're set for safety so that the skippers don't encounter ice or are less likely to encounter ice. Nothing is guaranteed around this area. Then if we scroll down to Appendix 6, we can see the penalty guide. Now this is what happens if somebody does stray into the Antarctic Exclusion Zone. And the range of penalties can be all the range from range 0, a financial penalty, up to range 4, which is disqualified from the race for different things that if you do something wrong in the Vendée Globe. And scrolling down further, they have a chart which shows which range different infractions are in. If we look at this one, the AEZ entrance not repaired, then that is in the range of 2 to 24 hours. But the jury does have the discretion to change a penalty depending on how serious it is. They may look at something and say, look, this was completely accidental and there was no choice. And so they can change penalties. A little bit further back, it was a very difficult Tuesday for Pip Hare on Medallia, as she explains.
Tough day for me today, which started last night when my keel motor stopped working. So my keel was stuck in one position. And I called a shore team and we went through a whole load of scenarios, and I ended up changing out a relay for the motor about 11 o'clock at night. And it was really, really rough. The boat was like lurching and flying. It was really hard work. And put the new relay in, it didn't work. Put the old one back in, it didn't work. We did about 2 hours of diagnostics and couldn't work out what the problem was. And that kind of wiped me out. So I kind of sailed for a bit and then decided I would have a longer sleep just to try and recover. And while I was sleeping, the furling line for my big sail broke, just snapped. The sail came out. I didn't hear it. It flapped around a lot, maybe for 2 hours, and it punched a hole in another sail. So yeah, it's been carnage this morning. Just carnage.
Thank you for watching today. It is going to be extremely interesting to see how the next 12 to 24 hours play out. So do subscribe to this channel using the button down here for the latest news. But we'll also be putting it on sailworld.com and yachtsandyachting.com. So please do head there, and we cover so much more in the world of sailing.